Hello, everyone. I'm Matthew Allen, and welcome back to the What a Thought podcast. Sorry, I had to readjust my pop filter. I always forget that I have to adjust it for me talking, sitting here, and not me sitting over on that other spot where I like to sit. Those were all words. My brain is tired. I worked this morning and yesterday morning. As of you hearing this, it comes out on Monday. I recorded on Sunday. It's a whole thing. But I worked both of those days. So either way, my sense was still correct. I worked this morning. And I'm just so tired. Which is wild because it was the latest shift I've gotten to have so far. Most of my days have seen me coming in at 6 a.m. And Sunday, I got to come in at 8 a.m. It's back to 6 a.m. the day that you guys hear this. It's really funny. That was not what I was originally going to talk about. But oh well. I'm still not going to tell you guys where I work because of... Sorry, I watched the cord. I watched the cord for my headset that I unplug whenever I record these because I don't need to hear myself. That's just a no. I will just get distracted and be like, ew. So I unplug it. And it just slowly uncoiled itself and then slid down and fell to the floor. But it's still plugged into the microphone, so it was just dangling. It was like Spider-Man failing to save Gwen Stacy. Sipping water. I'm a thirsty man. That was not where I was going to start my conversation. I was originally going to start it at my weird, not good feelings with Spotify right now, right? Those who pay attention, those who know, I love Critical Role. I only listen to two things if it's not music on Spotify, and that is Critical Role and Distractable. Now, there is a vast difference between those two things, in case you don't know. Distractable is a podcast done by Markiplier, Lord Minion 777, and MySkirm. I remembered all those names. They have real names, but if you're on the internet, you know those names. And they are now through Spotify. Spotify is the company backing their podcast, right? And Critical Role, those are just the uploads of their streams from Twitch, but without video, so it's just the audio. And for some reason, even though, because I still have my student premium account, because that's just how that works. It lasts for the year. It gives me ads, and I'm just like, why am I paying? Why am I paying for the Spotify premium student if I'm now just gonna get ads because this particular thing that I'm watching is made by Spotify? I feel like that's really chinksky to do. Because I'm already listening to that content on your platform, so I know you make your whatever cents for every listen, but that just feels so unattractive to the listener. It's oh, this thing is backed by Spotify, so now here's ads. And it's of no offense to those three gentlemen, who I find highly fascinating, and for how they've all managed to carve their own little separate paths in the world of YouTube and content creation and stuff. But there are just moments where it makes me feel I don't want to listen anymore, because it'll always be at least two, and then sometimes more. And it makes you, and it's always the same ads too. If I was getting a variety of ads, I'd be that's fine, cool. But I don't. It's always the same few ads about cars, or some of the other podcasts, or just Spotify. And I'm just this is a really distracting thing to have on here when I'm not supposed to have ads. And I was that's really goofy. But it is what it is. We live in a society, or whatever they say. Yeah, but I just wanted to bring that up because I was listening to Spotify before I started, and it popped itself into an ad as I went to go start, and I was just really? Okay. So let's see what's in here. Let's see what I wrote down? I wrote down nothing because I was going to talk about movies. I'm not going to talk about the big one because I could, but I won't because I have a little respect left for everyone else who doesn't have the opportunity to see these right now. I was going to talk about some other ones that I watched recently within like the past, since the month started, because what is it, the 11th? You know, I did a rewatch of Blade Runner. Fantastic film. Why did I rewatch Blade Runner? It was because I was trying to disprove a theory that someone else was holding. I can only hope was a joke. That Blade Runner and I, Robot were the same movie. And I was losing my marbles. I was absolutely losing my mind. I was just like, they're not the same movie. Please don't say they're the same movie. I was like, they're very different. And I know they kept saying that it was the same movie, it purposely just to egg me on. Because this was just funny to them. But I was getting ready to lose my mind. I was getting ready to just put my dukes up. Because I was just like, these are not the same. Stop that. For those who don't know those movies, firstly, how do you not know Blade Runner? I feel like at this point, it's just become a cultural touchstone that like everyone knows. Like just everyone knows it at this rate. And I'm not going to explain Blade Runner more than that at the moment, only because I kind of forgot. My brain is blanking out. There are replicants. Oh, sorry. There I go. I was like, what is the plot? People have created replicants, they're fake humans, to essentially do dangerous labor and work for them. They have a revolt. They try to rise up and gain rights. They fail, and as a result, the company that makes them puts in a failsafe in which that they are only able to live for 4 years. So they're created to be adults, and then they get 4 years as they do their work, and then their body will just shut down. They just die. And Blade Runners are the people that hunt down replicants that run off, that try to escape. And that's what Harrison Ford's character, Deckard, is. I forget his first name. Rick. There it is. Rick Deckard. And that's what the title is for. That's his job. He's a Blade Runner. Why that's the name of the people that hunt down replicants, I could not tell you. But that's the premise of that movie. Based off of the Philip K. Dick book, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? That's what inspired Blade Runner, right? I, Robot is a movie that stars Will Smith as Detective Del Spooner, that is his name, who is called in for an apparent suicide of a high-ranking roboticist in this future where robots help humans and are created to be like aides and whatnot, and this new line of them is supposed to come out. And then this man dies, and Will Smith is called in to investigate. And through his investigating, they find out that there is a much bigger plot occurring and brewing with these robots and the 3 laws that they have in place inside of them that are supposed to protect humans. That's essentially the plot of that movie. I love it because it's dumb fun. Like, I don't watch that movie so I could think. No one's watching that movie so they can think. Everyone's watching Blade Runner so they could think. And don't worry, I showed my friend. What's the cut that's behind me? Hold on, I'm going to spin in a circle. The director's cut. I straight up could not remember. I showed them the director's cut. You know, the good one. No narration at the beginning. And the unicorn dream sequence. If you know, you know. And that is based on... But iRobot... Sorry, I had to go back to that. It's based off of its own book. It's based on one of the little vignettes within the iRobot book that is by a man that I can't remember the name of at all. I was hoping I could find it, but I cannot. Like, without Googling. I didn't feel like Googling right now. It's got a really weird cast, the longer I think about that movie. It was Bridget Monahan. I don't know these movies that she's in, except John Wick, but I don't know as who, unless she's his wife, which would be really funny if she's only got flashbacks for 2 scenes. But like, they're 2 very different types of movies. They're 2 different adaptations of 2 different works of fiction. Like, they're not the same. And so I watched those just so I could show them to him and prove and just kind of be like, hey, stop saying that. I had to deal with like 30,000 jokes through iRobot, but then like they were very intensely serious through most of Blade Runner, which was a little surprising to me because their whole existence is just kind of Chaos Goblin. But I digress. It was a good time. If you haven't seen those movies, I recommend you check them out. Blade Runner had a fantastic sequel, Blade Runner 2049, that was just straight bombed at the box office. But it's gorgeous. The story is great. The action is stunning. That whole opening sequence with Ryan Gosling and Dave Bautista is just one for the ages. Like, it's just, it lives in my memory rent-free every time. Plus, just Dave Bautista in tiny glasses is just such a goofy little image. When I saw those 2, I also saw The Fifth Element, and that was that other Romeo Must Die, which I know I've mentioned Romeo Must Die like multiple times over the course of these 50 episodes. It's kind of insane. It's just so goofy, but I just love it. It's such a wild adaptation of Shakespeare. In case you don't know, Romeo Must Die is a, if you couldn't tell based on the title, adaptation of Romeo and Juliet, starring Jet Li and Aaliyah before she passed. May she rest in peace. And it's a kung fu action movie where instead of the 2 rivaling families are instead 2 rivaling gangs, one very much Asian and the other African American, if you couldn't tell by the pairing of Jet Li and Aaliyah. And the movie is dumb. I will never deny that. Like, it's dumb, but it's fun. It's in that same vein of fun that I hold iRobot, where I'm just like, you are stupid, but I accept you for your stupid, right? And it's just great. I don't have to explain that plot much more, because you can just place in Romeo and Juliet to an action movie and you'll probably figure it out, or you could go watch it. I don't know where you could go watch it. Every single movie I'm mentioning I own on DVD. That's where I watched those. I also saw, what did I say, Fifth Element? And I kind of forgot that The Fifth Element is just such a... It's non-stop, right? And I don't know if anyone's ever thought about that. Like, The Fifth Element just sort of keeps going. But I will explain. So that movie is nearly 2 hours long. Okay. Nearly 2 hours long. But the action and the sequences are just so layered back to back to back in such a fashion that you cannot bring yourself to acknowledge, oh my God, it's almost 2 hours. Because then by the time you do acknowledge that, it's over. It's done. The movie is finished. And you're just sort of like, oh, we're here? Okay. Cool. That's fun. And it's just great. Like, there aren't too many like that anymore, you know? Where it's just like, yes. Like, just yes. And you just move on from there. And it just keeps going. And it's so nonstop. And then suddenly the movie's over. And you're like, aw, no more Chris Tucker screaming in my ear. No one likes Chris Tucker screaming in their ear. But still. sorry, I'm looking at a different thing that is in relation into this. I also saw a movie that I will not talk about yet because it's still out in theaters, and I don't want to spoil it because it's a really big one that a lot of people want to see. And so I'm going to wait another 2 weeks because then at that point, it's going to have been a month. I will feel a little more better about talking about it because then people can significantly more obviously bypass it. Like they can choose to not listen safely and not feel like they got tricked into listening about it. I'm not going to tell you what the movie is because then people might be like, oh, well, what was he going to say? Instead, I'm going to tell you about a movie I did not watch on DVD and instead saw at a drive-in. And I've never been filled with just so much regret. Right? There is a manga out there in the world called Saint Seiya, Knights of the Zodiac. I separated my sentence like that because it sometimes shifts around. Sometimes it is Saint Seiya on its own. Sometimes it's Knights of the Zodiac on its own. Other times it is Saint Seiya, Knights of the Zodiac with the colon there. And it's just like, oh, okay. Right? Saint Seiya has been adapted into anime multiple times. The first time was in the 80s, and then again in 2002, and then again in 2009, and then in 2012, and then for a really short stint in 2015, which is really goofy, and then an additional very short stint in 2018, and then it ran hard again in 2019, right? I must inform you all that every single one of those until 2019 are just called, it's Saint Seiya, and then like an additional word will be there. So like Saint Seiya Hades, The Lost Canvas, Omega, like stuff like that. And then suddenly it's Knights of the Zodiac, Saint Seiya, which I think is so funny. And then a movie was made. A live action movie. Right? This movie had Sean Bean, Famke Jensen, who, if you don't know, is Jean Grey in those original X-Men movies. Like, it had a fascinating cast. And I was just like, okay. I was like, oh, cool. The girl from Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle. That's cool. Alongside Sean Bean. I was like, okay, cool. There's also... Oh, hold on. Do they have him in here? Yeah. Mark Dacascos. Who I am almost so certain is in Romeo Must Die. Hold on. Let's see if I can pull that circle back around. I'd feel really rude if I'm wrong, but it's also me. I can be wrong a lot. Henry-O was in Romeo Must Die. I forgot about that. He was not, and that's fine. D.B. Woodside was, though, and I feel like we should never let him live that down. Cool. Now that I've looked at that Google page that I needed to look at, I can say that I don't know what else this other man is in. Anyways, it has all those people, and I was like, oh, well, maybe this won't be too bad. Like, I was like, maybe this will be fine. Maybe it'll be good. No. No. I could not explain to you how bad this movie was. I sat there the whole time with so many questions about the plot, I had questions about character motivation, about choices that were made. There were literal moments when a character would say the thing they were gonna do, and then someone would be like, "Are you sure that's the choice you want to make?" And they'd be like, "You're right. I've got to do this." And I was like, "Then why did we spend time with you making that first choice?" I was like, "Why is the CGI effects like this?" The movie was so gray, which to some people they might be like, "Well, why does that matter?" And I'll tell you why. Because in my Googling to learn about all of these other Saint Seiyas, they're really colorful. And now I get it. When you adapt an anime or a manga into live action, the ability to do so, like, really tints what you can do, which I think is dumb. I feel like you should just go all out if you're gonna adapt it. Just fully commit. I was like, these outfits are really colorful, but obviously, if you can't tell from the Knights of the Zodiac title, all of the characters are supposed to get, like, they're, like, connected to the Zodiac in some fashion, and not for the year. I had to explain that to someone because I mentioned it and they were like, "Oh, like this," and I was like, "No." I was like, "You're thinking of the wrong Zodiac." I was like, I mean like all of them, like the constellations, like that Zodiac and whatnot." Right? So his thing is that he is the Pegasus, right? He's the Pegasus Knight, the main character of this manga anime movie adaptation. And he's got the most boring armor I've ever seen. It was just like sack t-shirt. I'm gonna say sack because if you showed me him wearing a burlap sack, like a potato sack, I'd believe you. I'd say that that's what that shirt was. It was like burlap sack for his shirt, like shoulder piece, and then like a couple of straps and whatnot. And there was like three other things. Like that was his first thing of armor. And they were like, "The Pegasus armor has been revealed," or whatever. That I'm saying it in this tone, but that's kind of the equivalent of how it felt to watch it. But so like they do all of that. And then later on, when he finally commits to going and saving this girl that's supposed to be like the reincarnation of Athena, which is the plot. Oh my god, I forgot the plot of this movie that I needed to explain. There was a war because Athena got reincarnated, right? As a child, like a baby, like a newborn. And there was a golden knight that died to defend her and brought her to Earth, where she is picked up by people who intend to try and find the Knights of the Zodiac that are meant to protect her, right? And there's a whole thing about Seiya and his sister, who was apparently taken, and also definitely dies off screen. Like, we see the same clip of her getting taken away by Famke Janssen and Sean Bean like 3-4 times. And it means nothing. I'm yawning. Accept it. It means nothing. Like, we keep seeing it, and I was like, is she gonna show up? Because normally that's what you do in a movie like this. Because the very first time we see it, we see the explosion, and then it cuts away. And we're like, oh, his sister died. And then the second time we see it, we see the explosion, and that she didn't die, and that they take her. And you're like, oh, so she's still alive. And the third time we see it, we see them take her, and then we see Sean Bean look around, but he definitely looks right into the closet where Seiya is hiding. And I'm like, Sean Bean should have seen him, but I guess Sean Bean is got bad eyesight from dying all those times. And I don't know, she's just a crutch for him. Like, she's just some hurdle that he has to overstep. Like, oh, my sister is dead, but I won't let her die in vain. And I was like, we could have done without this. There was at least 30 better ways to do what was just done than what is being done. But here we are, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, so like the character decisions are whack. There is like when he remembers that Sean Bean was there when his sister got taken, he comes back to like where he is with the the girl that they're protecting, and he goes to confront him, and she just sort of appears like the Athena reincarnation, and she's like, "Hey, no, let's just get out of here." And they hop on a bike, and the other guy who's also supposed to be protecting her is like, "Hey, you know you're not supposed to do that. Don't do that. Stop." And they just let her go. And I was like, "I'm sorry. Didn't you just say it was a whole big deal?" Right? I was like, "Is it not a big deal that she doesn't get out? Otherwise, they can track her little god energy signature that would lead them to finding her, where they could like kill her or use her power for evil or some nonsense." I was like, "What? Why are you just letting her go for this tantrum?" I was like, "That's stupid." And they don't even find her because of the powers. They just do. Like, they do just find. They don't even state, I don't think. I don't remember if they stated or not. There's also androids, and Famke Jensen has, like, I don't know, weird hand powers that dissolve things or ages things or does something to things. They don't explain it well. I just know it does a thing. And I sat there the whole time and was like, I can't imagine. Oh my god, I forgot about the woman in the mask, who I thought they were going to reveal to be Seiya's sister. I was like, that must be her. She's exiled to this island. She can never leave. She always wears this mask. You don't see her face ever. I was like, maybe that's her in a wig, hiding away, so that way they never like went and found her brother or whatnot. Big yawn. Right? And they just never bring it up. She's just a woman in a mask who is apparently also one of the Knights of the Zodiac. Like, they say that, but she's exiled to this island. And I was like, well, why? How can she be a Knight of the Zodiac but also be unable to leave this space? That doesn't make any sense. Why is she earthbending? Why is he punching rocks? I was like, there's a lot of questions here that are getting no answers. And not only are they getting no answers, but their questions are so dumb that the answers are absolutely necessary in order to survive and understand. And instead, we are here, and we are confused. And I was just like, okay, whatever, fine, that's cool. Gucci. Right? And I moved on. I moved on. But I watched that whole movie. They set up for a sequel at the end. Like, he saves her. There's a whole thing. You don't have to go watch it. You can go Google it. There's a whole thing where, like, he has to, like, track her down. Sean Bean dies, because of course he does. It's Sean Bean. And, like, they save her. And he's like, well, I guess, like, you're safe now. Like, we're all good. And she's like, well, now that Athena is awoken, like, the old gods will start to come forth and a war will brew. And I was like, none of that was revealed earlier. Where was that in the lore? This whole time you were just talking about how she can't contain Athena because she's just a human vessel. And now there's going to be a war with gods? Where was that in the rest of the plot? Why are you setting up for a sequel? Why did the dude that was the Phoenix, I think... That's not a... What? There's no constellation for you. Watch me about to Google about the Zodiac and realize I'm really wrong about Zodiac. I don't want the movie. If I can spell constellations. Oh, there's a whole lot. Oh, wow. Okay, hold on. There's so many in this list that I'm looking at that are not in ABC order. So for all I know, the Phoenix could be here. Muska? Fascinating name. Boots? That guy's just named Boots. No, it's not in this collection, and that's really funny. Yeah, that guy doesn't make any sense. Phoenix, I guess. That movie was wild. Set up for a sequel. They kept that villain alive, and I was just like, cool. Famke Jensen's alive. Cool. I was like, she can control her powers somehow. Cool. I was like, none of this makes any sense at all. And I sat and I watched that movie. And I was so confused. I was so confused. And I can't believe that's what we get to end today on. So I guess thank you for joining me for the What a Thought podcast. If you liked it, make sure to leave a like and comment down below. Tell me the things you're hoping to hear me talk about. If you've got something you want me to talk on, put it down in the comments. I do talk about things. I try my best to when people give me suggestions, but nobody does. It's really sad. It's sad face. But thank you guys again. I've been Matthew Allen. Tune in next week for some more Twilight. But until then, enjoy everything else, and I will see all of you then.